Call this meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Gary Berenger. Here. Paul Cuny excused. Joe Latte.
Present.
Robert Lurway.
Here.
Ren Peavy.
Here.
Carol Shannon here. Dave Torres.
Here. Have a quorum. Agendas before you. If there are no corrections or additions or questions about it, we'll by unanimous consent accept it. Consent agenda, item number 4. Anything to take out and discuss? Shall entertain a motion. Motion made by Larway to accept the consent agenda. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Peavy. Discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Motion carries. I want to thank the planning commission and Mr. Wolf for getting together and doing the master plan. Seen a lot of master plans, and I think this is the most comprehensive, most clear and concise one we've had in a long time. I really like the separation of the LIPOA's responsibilities or what they're in charge of, and then ours. So it's a visual that people can see. And that's the bullet point pattern I really like too. So I congrats both of you guys, both the committee and Mr. Wolf. Mr. Manager, you're up.
Good evening. We approved our third new home permit of the year, end of last week, or actually Monday technically. It is at the end of Channel Drive West. So that is the second home that has been developed or will be developed on Channel Drive West. So that is the street that goes to the west off Channel Drive, for like what word? I know, they got really creative, didn't they? Doesn't go east, it goes to the west. That is an area that when we started to address the building restrictions, when we started to address the zoning for that area, we knew there were going to be significant hurdles, based on the size of those lots. Those lots are ones that have, very small depth, if you will. But in general, they're ones that we saw and said,
This one was rare?
Yep.
so we shrunk the setback to 15 feet.
I want for you too.
And that's important because that's what they need to do on this project to get it through. Tomorrow there will be an exercise in Mount Pleasant for the emergency action plan on the dam. That'll be at the Emergency Operations Center. The association, myself, county officials, the Eagle, they will all be there. Attendance to work through a mock disaster scenario for our dam. Make any appropriate tweaks that need to be made to the EAC after that. The Mount Pleasant Police Department, hoping to get them started out here by the end of the month. We're working on a few like informational type things for them in terms of, just our streets and those type of issues, where to go, when they need to go to the bathroom after hours, important things like that, so. Trying to figure out a budget-friendly solution to a road patch on Carmen Drive. We had an area that's about 10 by maybe 60 kind of blowout that is gravel right now, but we had a pretty exorbitant quote from Central Asphalt to do a big patch, so we're trying to come up with a more realistic option with probably with Malley, if potentially they can just really bring in a load of asphalt and roll it out over it. Working on the internship program that you guys talked about during the budget. Looking at having both a high school option and a college option. Almost like a job co-op, I think, for the high school type level. But then it's something a little bit more detailed for the college level. Someone that be looking at the potential for public admin, that type of thing. King's Disposal, met with them. They're seeking a 5-year renewal. So hopefully we can have that for you guys at next month's meeting. Digital sign RFPs, close to getting done, narrowed down to 5 or 6 different companies that we're gonna be able to send that to. Nobody really super local, that we were able to find that does this type of work. Saginaw, Grand Rapids, Lansing, that type of area seem to be where the LED sign vendors resided mostly. Working on an RFP for our banking services that should be out hopefully in the next week or so. Looking at Mercantile, ICCU, Isabella Bank, obviously who we're currently with. Yeah, that is my report for you folks.
On the digital sign, who did the out of bounds signs?
Out of bounds signs was done by Universal LED out of Detroit.
We looked at them.
We have. And there's 6 other companies closer. Yeah.
Okay.
My concern with that would be because theirs is through the oil company aspect of out of bounds, so they have multiple accounts with them. We being so far away, if we had an issue with our sign, relying on them for maintenance would be.
I just wondered if there was something that made them stand out for them.
I don't know.
Any other questions? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Do we have an LIPOA thing?
I do.
Okay,
They should be moving the barge down this week. And the piping as well should be starting the next week or so to do the dredging project. They are behind, due in part to the condition of the containment berm. That location ended up being a lot heavier clay than what they had originally thought, so they are behind the construction of the holding cell. But according to George, they're looking at like September 1st, hopefully is the time to go date for work. They had their annual meeting this last weekend. There currently is a vacancy on the board from District 8. Christine Bellinger did not seek a new term. And Norm is their new vice president. So
That's the only change.
the only change I'm aware of.
any questions? Tim? Okay, seeing none. This is the portion, agenda item 6, cityhood discussion.
All right. All right, so we're gonna go through this presentation one more time for those who haven't seen it. Hopefully we'll be quick, but earlier this year, actually late last year, this board began discussing the possibility of incorporating as a city, changing our legal status from a village to city, and what that might entail and what the benefits and advantages might be and some of the drawbacks or other concerns that might be out there. So, in Michigan, we have 3 types of local government: cities, villages, and townships. The village of Lake Isabella is a home rule village, which means we have our own charter. General law villages are incorporated under the General Law Village Act. They have that act as their charter, their governing document. Townships fall into 2 categories: charter and general law. And cities, we've got home rule cities, 5th class cities, 4th class cities, and special charter cities. Which the special charter city happens to be Mackinac Island. Was Rotary, you'd have to pay $1.
Rhonda, we're collecting.
It's not mine.
Oh, it's not?
Wait. It just dawned on me, I hadn't shut mine off, and it caught. Blame. Sorry.
So when it comes to villages, under the General Law Village Act, your village president is elected independent of your council members and serves a 2-year term. Your council members, 6 of them serve 4-year terms that are staggered. So every 4 years, you have 3 trustees and a village president up for election. Public hearings are not required for most ordinances under a general law village. Zoning ordinances always require a hearing at one level or another. They can be disincorporated, and their taxation can do 12.5 mils for general operations, another 5 for their streets, and another 2.5 for cemeteries. Home rule villages, which we are here, they have flexibility in the composition of their village council. So our village council is elected for 4-year terms. There is 4 seats that are elected for 4 years, and 2 years later, the other 3 get 4-year terms. So there's always a staggering of those terms. But there's flexibility in how that composition is made. So in a general law village, you have a separate clerk and treasurer. So they can either be elected or appointed. In a home rule village, you can do that, or you can do what we did here, which is after an election in January, we have an organizational meeting. And at that meeting, the 7 members of your village council, they select their own village president, village clerk, village treasurer, village president pro tem. So there isn't those additional offices with additional folks here. They cannot be disincorporated, and it has a maximum taxation of 20 mills, which if you go back to the general law, 12.5, 2.5, and 5 equals 20. But it can be capped in the local charter, which ours is here at 1 mill. Cities, we have 5th, 4th, home rule. Effective in 1980, all 4th class cities were just deemed to be home rule cities. Why the state of Michigan thought we were gonna have a whole bunch of different classes of cities, I don't know. I wasn't around then. Born in 79, I can't tell you what they were thinking, folks. All cities have their own charter. 5th class cities and home rule cities are exactly the same thing with 2 distinct differences. The population requirement you must meet when you incorporate as a city, and that a 5th class city, elections are mandated to be at large. So you cannot have a district, you cannot have a ward, which we do not have here in the village. All of our elections are at large. So the whole village votes on your composition of the village council. You don't have like the association where you have districts. So the population thresholds here. If you're an incorporated village and you are between 750 souls and 2,000, you get to go as a 5th class city. If you have over 2,000, you must also meet a population density of 500 people per square mile. And that is a very important part of why we're having a discussion now. Because if you go back to 2020, great year, all of us got to spend a lot of time at home. And during that time at home, you got a card in the mail that says, fill this out, it's the United States Census. I said, hey, fill this out for where you are right now, which in the 3rd week of March really was a bad thing for us because a lot of people weren't here in the 3rd week of March. They were in a lot warmer places that were probably a little more open to business and those type of activities that you wanted to get out and do. So when the census number came out, it was 1,829 people. We know for an undisputable fact, because we challenged the census, they missed 50 homes in the village, 48 actually. We gave them the maps, gave them the GIS data, that these homes are here that you didn't count, guys. They said, yeah, sorry. Well, if we do a recount, it's gonna cost you $200,000 to $250,000 for your community. Like, okay, that's lovely. We have an incorporated boundary of 4.5 square miles. 1.25 of that is water. So under our current numbers, we meet the demographics and the threshold to go as a 5th class city. Based on our size, if we were to wait and the 2030 census comes out and we have a population of over 2,000 but less than 2,250, we are closed out of the game until at least 2040 at that point in time. Be the next census. If we maintain our current geographic boundaries, you would have to shrink the boundaries down at some point to try and meet that density requirement. Because at 4.5 square miles times 5, that's 2,250. That's what you gotta have if you're over 2,000. So that is kind of one of the things why we said, you know, this is a good opportunity to take a look at this now, because this ship may sail and it may not be able to come back to port for 15 years, quite frankly. As a resident or property owner in the village, you pay taxes to all of these different entities, including one that's actually not on there.
I found 2.
2?
Got the library, that's what I'm gonna talk about tonight.
Okay, the library.
What was the other one?
The other is Chip Hills operating for 18.
Yeah, this is the homesteaded. So above does not reflect the 18 mills levied against non-homestead properties.
But we pay it.
If you are not homestead, correct. If you're homestead, you don't pay it.
Right.
I don't pay it, I'm Homestead.
Okay,
But the library.
The library's not on, correct. 6.61 mils for the county, state education tax of 6 mils. The ISD around 5. Chip Hills debt millage at 3.875, Lake Restoration millage at 2.9 this most recent year. Either your fire millage or your fire special assessment at 1 mil. County medical facility at 1. Your township operating at about 0.99 or 97. Commission on Aging 0.876, IRIDE 0.862. The village 0.7976, Parks 0.35. Our Sherman Township folks also pay 7.324 to the library in the township. So when you think of what is a city or a village, people get hung up on that term, city or village. I point out that we all know this great place here. You can buy fudge, you can get on a ferry. It's really close to that special charter city. We all know that is Mackinac City, but it's really the village of Mackinac City. They're an incorporated village.
Huh.
Cass City, incorporated village. Douglas is an incorporated city, the city of the village of Douglas, so. City, village in terms of the name really doesn't convey much other than this, what you're calling yourself, quite frankly. There are 3 key differences as a city versus a village. Mandated services, your city must provide you as a primary unit of government with an assessor, a board of review, billing, collecting, and taxes of disbursements, and elections, state, county, school, and federal. Those are the 3 services that we do not do right now that we would have to take on. When it comes to those, we already do our own summer billing. So we would need to pick up a winter bill. And we used to do our own elections right here in this room up until the state took it away in 2012. So at the time, there were only about 18 villages, I think, that were still doing their own elections, and they said, you know, it's a little bit too much for us to try and keep you guys on the same schedule as everybody else. We're just gonna make you go to the townships. And looking at what those costs might be for us to pick up these services. Assessing and board review, the current going rate is $15 a parcel. 2,300 parcels plus what you're gonna pay for your board review folk, roughly about 40,000. To do another tax billing, you're talking another 2,000 to 2,500. And elections really will vary depending on the year, with even numbered years being more, obviously. Odd numbered years being less, but on the high end, 25 to 30 based on what we have seen from the last few cycles. We might also need to look at potentially adding a part-time position in the office to help with that extra billing. Another thing that we could include in this too is right now we only do our summer billing. If we were to do both billing, we could also send out a reminder in that winter bill if the summer bill is unpaid. Assessing, we would look to do a contracted position, most likely similar to what the townships are doing right now. How to fund that? Well, as mentioned earlier, our general operating millage is capped at 1 mil and rolled back to 7.976 this year. Village residents pay additional 1 mil rolled back to the respective townships, rolled back to an average of 0.98. We also pay fire. And Sherman Township also pays for the library. If incorporated, and we were to go to a 2 mil cap, because as a city, you would not pay any of those township taxes any longer. Fire, library, operating would not be paid as a city. It would generate an additional $142,000 roughly in revenue to offset those end costs. If you are doing the tax billing and collection for other entities, you need to add on the 1% admin fee. That would generate another $25,000 annually roughly. With the full 2 mil capture, you're seeing an increase of about 142,000. The average cost for those services is about 83. So you're looking at a general fund impact of about $84,000 is what potentially could come back in a tax neutral scenario on the operating millage component to the village. Additionally, as we look at what other benefits might be in that, elections would be here as opposed to the township hall. You have full-time staff that's open 5 days a week. You have better online services. You would ensure uniform assessing throughout the community. Right now, both townships rely on the same assessor. That has not always been the case. And I think very importantly, you would have a board review of village residents. So if you were unhappy with your tax situation, the people that you would come in and make that case to would be your neighbors. It'd be fellow residents of the community. Right now, it's the entire township subject to board review. Now, when we look at division of services in our community, in terms of what we provide and what our friends of the association provide. On their side of the ledger, they've got the campground. They have their little library, 5K annual picnic, drawdown, parks, dam, tennis courts, lake spray. On our side, we've got zoning, fireworks, code enforcement, fire contract, police contract, garbage, street lights, street snow plowing, brush dump, and the one thing that we are working together on, which is the lake restoration fund. So when we look at our side of that illustration, the three things where there is certainly a need for additional funding to meet the service needs in our community, local street maintenance, policing, especially in light of the county's elimination of road patrols. And the lake could always use more money. Plain and simple. So why do we think we need additional revenue in these areas? Well, when we look at road funding, in Michigan, you pay road taxes to the federal government and your state government. So starting at the highest level here, this is the National Functional Classification System map for our area. To be federal aid eligible for any grants from Uncle Sam, you've got to have a road that's at least a major collector. River, Drew, Coldwater, Rowland, none of those are ours. Those are road commission roads. None of your streets in the village are federal aid eligible. So that's off the table. In the state of Michigan, you pay 31 cents a gallon this year for gasoline tax to the state of Michigan. And that goes into what's known as the Michigan Transportation Fund, the MTF. You also pay sales tax. That goes to other things other than just the roads, but this goes into the MTF fund along with your other vehicle registration fees, your other related taxes, so on and so forth. That then gets divided up with 39.1% going to the state of Michigan through MDOT. The counties take an equally big chunk of the pie at 39.1%, leaving cities and villages at 21.8%. It's an odd fight that we have because the most lane miles are in that gray section. The most traffic is in the blue section. The second most traffic is in the orange section. But that money is then divided up into a formula, the Act 51 formula. This is right off the MDOT's website. So this is what the formula looks like. It's a combination of your population and your mileage. And you add those into what the dollar amounts set by MDOT, actually through the legislature are, and that gets you what your disbursement is. So 68.84 per person in the village goes towards major, $22.95 towards local. Your mileage at 19,000 and change and 5,000. Population multiplier, if you're over 2,000 people, you get a 10% bump on your major street money. That would have been fantastic because that would have been another $250,000, $300,000 that we would have had over this decade. Local streets, if you're using Act 51 dollars for capital improvements, you must come up with a dollar for dollar match out of either general fund, special assessment, grant, millages, something like that. And the act clearly states that the first priority is the major street system. You can transfer money from your majors to your local, up to 100% if you have an adopted asset management plan, which we do. In terms of the size of the street network we have to maintain here in Lake Isabella, it's pretty big, guys. Obviously, Mount Pleasant is the big guy in the neighborhood at almost 76 miles. Elma at 48, Big Rapids at 38, and then Lake Isabella, number 4, 26.34 miles. Clare, St. Louis, Ithaca have all similar size networks. Then you get into the smaller networks, the Coleman's, the Edmores, the Shepherds, the Bushes. We have a lot of streets. We have a lot of streets in this community. Those are our majors. They're the really easy ones to find. They've got white and yellow paint on them. So it's Clubhouse, El Camino, most of Queensway, Bundy, most of DeQuessa, Birdie, and Bonanza, and a little bit of Baseline. We actually haven't striped that part of Baseline, but it is a major street from back when the pellet factory was there. For that network, when you throw in our population of 1,829, and you times that by the unit value, and our major miles with that non-multiplied one there, you get about $280,000 is what's projected in the next fiscal year from the state of Michigan. That's okay. As mentioned, we have an asset management system, and part of that, we use a rating system called Payzer, where we go out every year and we look at the condition of the road. And based on the distress that we observe, the cracking, the rutting, those type of stuff, this system has a numeric value. And so we assign values to each segment of our road network. And this is how we monitor and manage it. And so as you can see on the major street network, we've been making investments in recent years and have got that back up to a 632, which is in the good to fair range. Our major streets are pretty good. We get enough money that over the life of them, we can maintain them. Over the last 6 years, these are the projects that we've done: Queensway, Birdie, El Camino, Clubhouse. All told, about $775,000 invested into that network since 2019. So all told, that network's in pretty decent shape. This network, however, for local streets, 17 miles of paved road, another 1.5 miles of gravel, which most of our community happen to live on, is a lot different story. For those 18 miles, 18.5 miles, we get $139,000 roughly, about $7,500 a mile. That's what that network looks like. Using the exact same system. Over time, that has continually went down to a 277. So that's in the poor condition. And while they drive pretty decent, the structural distress signs are evident with the cracking that you're seeing. They're in need of attention within the next couple of years in one way or another. The local streets, well, they got paved mainly through special assessment. So in 2003, Fairway Drive, 2004 Queensway, 2005 Castle, Putter, 2007, did the rest of them. So in those 15 miles that got paved through that process was a total of $2.2 million invested back in early $2000. I went back and looked, and I think the price of asphalt on that project was like $55 a ton. We're paying $95 a ton now, so it's going to be significantly higher when you have to go back to do a similar project. So back to this number here. Number 4. It was back in the old college football area, you just qualified to get in that 14 playoff. But unfortunately, the Act 51 formula rewards density. And density is not our strong suit in Lake Isabella. We've got a big lake, we got a bunch of roads around it. So for our size network, receiving only $419,000 a year puts us at a pretty steep disadvantage in how we're able to maintain that comparatively to the other communities around us. Clare supplements theirs with a 3 mil dedicated millage to their streets. But when you break that down into what it does per mile, Rosebush is the only place that gets less per major street mile than we do. And nobody does on their local streets. So when you look at trying to solve that 277 number on the local streets, how do we come up with the funds to do that? It's clearly an area where we have to make another investment as a community. The second area that we've talked about is police services. End of 2024, Isabella County discontinued road patrol services and terminated our contract with them. Fun times. The most recent year that we have full data for is 2022. We saw, these are non-ambulance calls, 627 calls for service. 95 were for more serious type issues, 42 animal control, and 127 were vehicle stops. So not a huge demand by any stretch of the imagination. But that is done in a time when you had 24-hour coverage from the sheriff's department to be available in a reasonable response time. What we don't know. We don't know if the county is going to present a new funding proposal in 2026. We don't know if voters will support that. We don't know what service level would be funded. We don't know if they would come back and try and do the whole department again, or a smaller number of deputies. None of that is known, and they have not shared what they might be thinking. So as we look ahead to what we can do as a community in terms of meeting those needs, obviously monitoring what that data says. But really the options we have are to not renew or extend that current contract that we just approved with the city. This really intended to just be kind of a Band-Aid until we know what happens with the county. Actually look at extending that contract. Maybe there's an opportunity for a new county agreement, or last case scenario would be potentially to have to start our own if these other options aren't present and there is a need to do so in our community. When we look at what the nearby neighbors are doing for policing, everybody bigger than Farwell is doing some type of either part-time or contract. We're the exception to that group. You're smaller, your Farwell, your Sanford, Rosebush, they rely on the sheriff and state police. Shepherd has 2 full-time employees. Barrington, as far as we know, is all part-time, and the village of Breckenridge is 1 full-time and part-time to staff their small municipal departments. Coverage contract would vary greatly based on what the department size would look like if need be. It'd also vary with whoever potential contract would be with the county or the state, or not state, the city. So all of these are great unknowns, but they are definitely things that we have to monitor as an organization. Because that's what the needs of our community come up and say, we definitely need additional safety services out here. It's gonna cost money to provide that service. Now, back to the incorporation process. You'd have full control over your community. You'd have your full operational millage, reduces the layer of government, ensures consistent assessing services. That process to incorporate goes through the State Boundary Commission, which is under the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs. So if the council elects to move forward, the next step in the process, we've already done the beginning step, would be to contact them to get petitions and have an updated map and legal description made. But the next step after that would be to do the petition gathering or signature gathering on petitions. You need 100 signatures from registered voters in the area that's subject to incorporation. If you are successful in getting those, you would submit them to the state and to the township. The state then has 60 to 220 days to look at scheduling a public hearing. The village is contacted, the township's contacted. You're required to provide 3 locations for possible meeting places for the public hearing, et cetera, et cetera. At the first hearing, they collect comments. Stakeholders are given 30 days to respond in writing after the hearing to questions and comments. Both the village and the townships are allotted times to address the petition. Answering questions, along the lines of what incorporation might mean for each entity, so on and so forth. We, as a village, did this in 1998, actually in the mid-90s, it ended in 98, so these are, an example of the documents that were sent. Here's the first hearing, here questions on June 6, 1995, and those questions were, why is it necessary, desirable? What services do you intend to provide? What's the impact on the community and the townships? If it's approved or denied. Pretty straightforward stuff. One thing that the law does talk about, and it's something that we have made clear in every conversation we've had about this. The law requires that there is a division of assets. Because as village residents and property owners, we've paid into a township and established their fund balance for X number of years. The law says there must be a division of assets between the two entities. And that is something that the village has made clear that we want no part of. Because we realize our SED is a good chunk of both of the townships, about 45–47%. So knowing that that's going to impact your future tax capture, that is not something that this board has said we want any part of. We want to not deal with the division of assets. We want to keep that as is. But there is going to be, an obvious hit to the townships. So when you look at what that net impact is on the two townships, there is some cost savings because there is less assessing on that end. So taking that parcel count out, the net impact to Sherman Township is about 41,000 out of their operating, and Bloomfield Township is about 35,000. So that goes back to why the village has said we don't want to go down the division of assets. We know that's going to hurt their future tax capture. We also have talked to the township about the fire department and reaffirmed to them that we want to continue that 1 mil relationship with them. Whether it's through special assessment or dedicated millage in the village, but that is a relationship that we want to maintain. We've met with Sherman Township, their board, or representatives of their board. We've reached out to Broomfield Township 3 times now and have not heard back from them. But in full disclosure, that was the extent of the discussion with Sherman Township. There was no other concerns raised during those meetings. But there is one more, just the library. So in fiscal year 24, 7324 was the mills levy to support the Sherman Township Library, township-wide, which I'm going to guess is about $46,000 of village tax dollars based on the SAV and that millage rate. So yeah, that is a huge work for the hit on the township. We reached out last week to Shirley and have not heard back from her about a meeting, so.
Okay, well, I would come with a little higher amount, but still, it's huge for us.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. I live in Broomfield. Do I pay for the library?
No, I don't either.
No, we have, from Broomfield Township, we have taken you have given us some of your penal fines, so
So there is
Yeah.
money then. Okay,
there is money.
okay.
So
Yes.
when the millage happened back in the day, that was when the Chippewa River District Library broke up.
Right.
We did approach the township and say, what would it take for us to have our Broomfield Township people be able to continue to use the library? And the response that we received at that time was, we're gonna let you do it, wink, wink, under the table, because if we increase our population, that impacts the hours and staffing that we have to do with the library. And to keep that cost down, we're not going to officially do anything with you. That was
Okay, well,
years ago.
that,
Yeah.
I was
We
gonna
have
say,
to pay yearly Broomfield to get a card at Sherman.
Yeah,
I have to pay $25.
no, not
Yes.
anymore, not
So-
anymore.
I did last September.
No, because just recently you gave us the penal fines. Just
Just
recently,
recently.
but that's your whole family, so that's really not too bad.
yeah, Chippewa District Bradley is like one,
Yeah, what is,
170 for the year.
right,
The
yeah,
whole family,
yeah,
yeah.
right,
So
so,
the State Boundary Commission looks at it, population density and land use. The need for services and the general effect on land use plans, that type of stuff. It's what they send you back to summary of proceedings. If approved by the State Boundary Commission, the next step in the process would be the election of a 9-member charter commission. People must reside in the area to be incorporated. You must be nominated by a petition of at least 20 registered voters in said area. Charter Commission then has 90 days after they first convene to draft a charter, which is then sent off to the governor's office for review, which farms it out to the AG. After that, then you'd have the election to ratify the charter, say yea or nay, and also elect a new slate of officers for the city. It would no longer be a village. Some of the questions we received so far. Does becoming a city mean we have to put in sewers, have a water system, get a post office, or have a police department? And there's one answer to all that. That's no. You don't have to put in a sewer, you don't have to take over the water system, you don't get a post office. And being a city or a village has no impact on whether you have a police department. Doesn't mean the lake will become public. Well, the lake as a body of water is already public waters. That is why we can levy a 3 mil tax to do lake restoration, because it is a public asset. The control of the launch sites, all owned by the LIPOA, would be unchanged. All private property would remain unchanged in the village. No change in that whatsoever. The way I described it the other day was, that'd be like if we became a city, it couldn't be a marathon, it'd have to go back to being a Citgo or a Togo, like private property is private property, we don't have any say there. We're not looking to expand our boundaries. We're looking actually to stay just where we are, we're not looking to grab additional territory. Marijuana shops, streetlights, strip malls. We could do all that right now if we really wanted to. We prohibit marijuana businesses through our zoning ordinance. We have a policy that governs streetlights. We've tried to maintain a dark sky friendly approach and only do major intersections. And strip malls are done through zoning as well. What's it gonna mean for my property taxes and my property values? Well, taking on assessing is one of those 3 functions, including having your own board of review. So when you look at how this has been talked about at this board, it's been talked about as a tax neutral change in terms of that 1 mil coming to us that's going to the township operating. We also would not look to levy the 1/3 of a mil that we did for road patrol. We haven't collected that for 2 years. So in looking at the larger tax part of this discussion, your tax bill is a combination of these 2 things. What your millage rate is and what your taxable value is. And so if we were to incorporate as a city, you would have 2 tax bills a year based on the most recent rates. Your summer bill would be of your village operating, your lake restoration, fire, county operating, state education, Chip Hills, and the sinking fund. Winter, your IRIDE, your medical care, your parks, commission on aging, your ISD, and I think the 18 mils if you're non-homestead. So all told, it's not a tax increase on our part, and quite candidly, if the library millage isn't levied on the Sherman Township side, it's a tax savings for them. Property values, the way it's factored in Michigan, is through a great formula that's done kind of a statewide equalization factor. Your capped growth on your tax bill is limited to the lesser of 5% of the rate of inflation. For as long as there's no improvements or transfer of ownership, and uncapping happens when you sell the property. So you have 2 numbers. You have your equalized and your assessed, and over time, the equalized goes like this, and the assessed kind of catches up to it like that. Until you sell, and then it pops up. That's what they call the pop up. But summary, it is a lengthy process. Requires at least 2 elections. There is a right of referendum in there. That would happen with the charter commission election if someone wanted to challenge going forward at that point in time. May prove to be a tax savings is the way we've been looking at it. We do believe that for the general operation side of the table, that we would be able to offer equal or better services in those areas that we would pick up. You'd have total local control, and then based on the 2030 census, this might be your opportunity to do it or wait till 2040. With that is what I have for you folks.
Questions?
There was a new charter that would be developed under going from the village to the city. Would that be voted on by the residents here?
Yes.
Correct.
So the village we have now could remain the same or go up higher if we went to the city.
It'd be whatever the charter commission.
The
put in
charter, yeah.
But then it would be voted on by the residents.
Correct, so our
Yeah,
current
first
charter,
thing you do is get a charter commission. Those people are voted on by the residents.
Right.
And then they have 90 days to come up with the charter.
Okay. And is that final charter then approved? I mean, do the voters?
Correct.
Yes.
Yep. And so like our current charter right now, when you incorporate as a village, you only have to have a 7-member charter commission, not the 9. But
Right.
the time limits are all the same. So that charter was put before the voters in April of '98. It was approved 305 to like 110. And since then, the village has done a couple, handful of amendments throughout the years to make minor adjustments. We've had 2 charter review committees of residents meet in 10-year increments to review the charter. But the charter as a governing document can only be amended by a vote of the people. This board can only propose an amendment. Voters can also propose amendments through the petition process, but they have no authority to amend that charter. That lies entirely in your hands.
City commission could even just take the current charter and adopt that over there, if they want to do it on that road.
So then my question again is, what are we going to do about the library?
Yeah, I'd love to have a conversation with Shirley about that. See where
I'm on
that
the
is.
board.
I know you are,
Okay.
know. Yeah, that'd be nice to know data on like, how many Lake Isabella residents are members of the library,
Right.
What that impact is
I
gonna be.
understand.
Yep.
Have you considered if the Axe My Tax millage, getting rid of the millages, if it gets, the proposal gets through and passed? Have you even looked at that as any kind of an option?
You want my honest answer?
Yeah.
If that passes, this is the least of our worries because government operations, as you know, will cease to exist. Right, like literally. Like that proposal is saying that, they're gonna backfill these essential services. They're not backfilling it at anywhere near the rate that it costs to provide these services. So it is a huge draconian hit to everything in terms of local government.
Such as 9-day voting, such as a lot of the other proposals that did pass.
Yeah.
So if it does pass.
If it does pass.
then you'll worry about it then?
There isn't gonna be a whole lot to worry about, because.
We just
Okay, well,
We'll be-
no,
yeah.
I just didn't know if you
Yeah.
even considered it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because, like, we just went to Sherman's Township.
Yeah.
And Denise was worried about the 9-day voting. They were worried to death about how
Yeah.
they're gonna get this all into place. So,
Yeah.
I mean, so things happen
Oh, they do.
when they get on, if the proposal gets on the ballot, what could happen? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, but in our community, that means, lake funding, with our 1 mill, we're able to somewhat have a lesser impact than a larger municipality that has 15, 16 mills like Mount Pleasant. But even on our end, we would not have an office that's open full time because we wouldn't be able to staff that.
So I have a statement. This is a lot to take in a short period of time, okay? I think some of the biggest concerns that I and a lot of people have is what's the benefit to us? But we've seen a lot of numbers, nobody's a CPA in here that I'm aware of. And it's a lot to digest. So give me the pro and the con. Give me the pro for the resident. I heard some of them.
The pro is exactly what I was trying to tell you earlier, that there are these needs in our community that we need to meet. Whether it's roads, whether it's police, whether it's more money for the lakes. All these things unquestionably are gonna require more tax dollars in one way or another to remedy. And as opposed to coming to you first and saying, we want you to pay more, we'd at least like to try and get your tax dollars to stay here for us to put towards those before we come to you and say, we want you to pay more. And if we can take that 1 mill from the township, so it is tax neutral on the operating side of the equation. That's a start in our book that we're not asking you to pay more, but we're able to deliver more services in these areas to you, the resident. The cons are, we're gonna have to find people to serve on the board of review. We're gonna have to have an assessor. We are going to have to hold elections in this building. So there are additional demands on us. And that's really unique in Lake Isabella sense, because if you think of our community, we're 2,000-ish people roughly, but we have 2 organizations that require a lot of bodies to make work. And our boards can't serve on each other's boards. They can serve like on, the planning commission or the lake committee. But we have a 7-member board here. We have a 7-member planning commission. We have a 5-member ZBA. We have a 3-member board of ethics. They've got a 9-member board that's got a vacancy right now. They've got a parks committee. They've got a lake committee. And so finding people to serve in these roles is an issue because, to be pretty blunt, my generation and younger aren't signing up to join and serve at the way the generations ahead of me did. I'm 45. I'm the end of the Gen X generation. And that civic engagement is getting tougher and tougher each generation that comes up. The boomers, the joiners, they were conditioned from an early age that, we're doing Kiwanis Club, we're doing Chamber of Commerce, we're doing all these things. And boy, that is just such a stretch now when you have 2-income families, you got kids and activities, you got all these things going on that compete for that weeknight every night of the week to get somewhere. So it will be a challenge, no matter what we do, to find qualified people to serve in both organizations. The other challenge I would say, in terms of what we do as a community is, putting those dollars towards these is a start, but it's probably not the end result to fix the roads, let's say. I'm not your governor. I'm not going to promise you I'm going to fix the damn roads. But there is additional money that needs to go into our local street systems. And Lansing has been unwilling to deal with this for years. So.
And what's their fix to fix that? How are they gonna get the funds to fix the roads? We're talking about the government now.
Talking Lansing?
Yeah.
The most recent scenario
You just did.
is a diversion
You
of
just
funds
did.
from the general fund.
Yeah.
Which, that was prior to, this is not a political statement, so please don't misconstrue it. The big beautiful bill changes the way income tax is calculated at S corps and smaller corporations. So now your state government is looking at a reduction in their revenue because that corporate filings are going to be exempt under those laws. So now the state's got a budget hole to fill that makes that road funding that they were talking about in the spring a lot more of an uphill battle because now they've got to fund other things in that general fund pool. So. Yeah.
You showed a bunch of numbers,
Mhm.
and the bottom line is, we're gonna get X amount of dollars back from the township. And then from that, then you have to deduct the cost you have for the voting, the assessor,
Additional people.
possibly the
Yep.
library.
Yep.
And something else. So the bottom line, what was the bottom line figure that we're actually gonna get?
About 84,000
84,000 a year.
of your tax dollars to stay here. Instead of going to the township, the 2 mills would come here.
And that's
It's been
after all
going,
the expenses we have to do.
Correct, yep.
We'll have to buy voting equipment and
We
stuff.
have, well, there'll be a capital outlay to do the new equipment. That's
But
not-
that 84,000 is extra money that stays here.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Something I've been pushing for many years, it's becoming a city because that's my main reason. Why do we pay the townships taxes that really don't get spent back here? So now we're looking at, let's take those taxes and pay them down, bring them back here and ourselves.
So let's talk about a police department. What would it cost to have 2 cops?
So I can give you a really good number on that because I moonlight for the village shepherd as their zoning administrator and they have a 2 full-time officer department. The cost to run that department annually this year is about $225,000. If you look at the cost to start up a department, now we have been trying to position ourselves in a way that if God forbid this were a necessity, we kind of already have a backup car. So our code enforcement vehicle that we have is actually a police interceptor that's been retired from police use, but you would potentially have a backup car if your main car was getting tires or whatever. If you needed a second one for an accident to close a road, that type of stuff. But to get a new vehicle or even a lightly used vehicle and equip it out, that's a huge cost these days. That vehicle's 60 grand at least.
More than that, trust me.
If it's a car, it's 60. If it's, you're in the SUV range, you're pushing 6 figures. You really are.
400 grand.
Yeah.
And then you gotta put the insurance on, and the maintenance, the gas, and.
Yep.
It goes on and on and on.
Yeah, so if you do an installment purchase on that vehicle for that initial capital outlay, your startup costs are gonna be about 80,000 roughly to start the department. That gets you, you know, all your equipment, that kind of stuff. And then the number to do a two-person full-time is 225 ballpark. If you did one full-time and then a cadre of part-time, you can bring that down to 175. You know, but, you know, when you look at the department issue, Isabella County is pretty unique here in that we have a lot of policing entities. So you've got the sheriff, you've got the city, you got CMU, you got tribal. And the sheriff's department was always the low employer on that totem pole because the other departments could offer higher benefits, better wages. So they would always pull from the sheriff to go to the city or to go to CMU. You know, getting your kid free college tuition's a nice perk, you know, but. So you look at that as another hurdle if we start our own department is being able to staff it consistently with professional people that are going to be community minded in their approach to policing. And I mean that in a nice way because small town departments, if you are that meat pad location, you know, you get people that don't have necessarily a ton of experience to be community policemen. You know, they know the book, they want to enforce it. But just because you can potentially write a ticket doesn't mean you have to. There's ways to educate without being draconian in your enforcement. That would be a hurdle that we would face as starting our own department. Shepherd's fortunate that they've got 2 full-time officers that have been there for a while. Their former chief is now our sheriff. You know, but finding people that want to come to a small department, that'll be a challenge potentially. Keeping people for a long duration so that they build those relationships in our community so that when there is a problem, there's that trust built that I can go talk to them and say, hey, I don't want to, you know, make an issue about this, but could you maybe have a conversation over there? You know, that takes time and investment and man hours to build that into your community. So
So the 225, that covers all the benefits of 401, insurance.
Yeah.
Maintenance of the car.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole enchilada,
Yeah.
right?
now they are a little bit more successful in the grant range when it comes to some of their equipment because with them being in the reservation boundary, they can go after 2% fund. We are not, so we are not eligible to go after 2% from the tribe. So USDA has low interest loan type programs that are available for police and fire safety equipment. So that would be a funding mechanism to get a vehicle at a reduced interest rate if you did finance it out. Yeah, 225 is what they're paying.
Who would take the calls for that? Central Dispatch?
Yeah, that would remain unchanged.
And would we have to pay them?
You already do.
Okay.
Yeah, so the voters of Isabella County approved a 911 surcharge several years ago. So every phone bill has this surcharge on it that funds our 911 operations. So that 6.61 mils you pay to the county, that's not paying for Central Dispatch, your phone bill's paying for it.
So we're looking at this 5 years after the last census. Why, if it doesn't pass, would it go 10 years after the next census?
Very likely it will, because if you're over that 2,000 population, you have to meet the density requirement of 500 people per square mile. We're 4.5 square miles. That means if we're over 2,000, we've got to be over 2,250. And 1829 is our official number, with 48 homes that were missed and another 60 homes that have been built. And your home size of 2.3 residents per home, the numbers are looking like high 2100s is where we're going to come in at the 2030 census. At 2190 is what the last estimate, so I think is our master plan from Esri.
Yep.
You know, so you're gonna be just shy of that number to go look at this then. And if you're shy then, you either have to shrink your boundaries to get that density component, or you sit and wait.
Take the lake out of the boundaries.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. Make it a little bit more challenging for us to do the lake restoration village if it's not in the community though. There are a couple of larger parcels potentially, Van Weiss's property, our lagoon property, but one of the reasons why those were included when we incorporated, quite frankly, was to ensure that future development would be compatible with the lake and be able to be in the association to support the lake. You didn't want to have a large development accessing your body of water outside of your community, essentially. So.
Tim, let me ask you, who's gonna run it, the mayor? Of
So-
your city, you're gonna have a mayor, you're gonna have an assistant mayor.
It can be same as it is now, depends on what the charter says, or it can be a mayor and elected officials.
So you have really two types of government. You have the council manager form, or you have strong mayor. Which we could have strong mayor and it'd be the village president, so. The charter adoption process is the only legal way to amend what your governing structure is. So we are council manager, that's what we are unless the charter says otherwise. So the charter could definitely change that if the commission wrote it that way. But our current charter meets all the requirements in terms of what would be required in the city charter. They did come up, why am I doing this? Am I gonna get this big severance when they boot me out of here? It's like, I'm raising my kids here, people. I'm not planning on leaving. Like,
Well, not, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. The new charter commission
Yep.
has that leeway to do that, but they don't have to revamp everything. They can keep it the way it is.
And even if the charter commission make changes, don't come back to us.
And you still get to vote on
We
it.
like that or not.
You can even have a referendum if you don't like the outcome of the vote.
yeah, so if you move forward through that hearing process, the right of referendum is 5% of your voting base. That's about 80 people who need to submit a petition. So then when you do that charter commission election, they have the opportunity to halt the process completely then.
So there's a lot of fail safes in it. If it's not going the way the public wants. Anybody else?
Well, you've worked on this for a long time, with a lot of information. When's the next meeting?
Well, probably 4 years.
It's a good thing it came tonight.
Well, the next village council meeting is September 23rd.
This
Yeah.
slide shows on the
It's on the
the
website.
Yeah.
website, so.
Yeah, with one exception, I added the library since the last time because. And I legitimately apologize. I'm a resident of Broomfield Township. I don't pay it. And the township never brought it up in our discussion. We had a resident come in on Friday and say, what about the library? I'm like, what about the library?
Yeah, we didn't know.
Yeah,
Cause I'm in Broomfield too.
yeah.
And you could come to the library and take books out.
Secretly.
No,
Not
not
You don't have to
secretly.
pay in
No,
September.
we don't.
Oh. We'll just reparations from later, from years past.
That's what we're gonna vote on. Won't happen until November of next year, next election.
Yeah, so one of the reasons why this is a very lengthy process is you're not trying, you're required to pigeonhole into two schedules. So the State Boundary Commission has a set meeting schedule, and then by law, your elections in Michigan are either May, August, or November. And for elections, you have to have, materials out 14 weeks in advance. The ballot language finalized, so like to hit those realistically, if the council were to move forward with gathering petitions and we get those in by Thanksgiving-ish. You maybe be looking at August next year for that charter commission type election. And then based on that, you'd be looking at May of 27
Mhm.
for the adoption one, so it's a ways, it's a long process.
So the fire department is is it its own entity or is it part of the township that it's in?
It's an independent entity that is made up of two representatives from Sherman, two from Nottawa, and an at-large member. But they have their own, like like in terms of taxation, they have their own EIN, they have their own audit, they have their own, all of that.
I'll tell you,
So they get their operation money from Ottawa.
Correct, so Sherman Township, 1 mil, voter approved township wide. Our Lake Isabella residents in Broomfield, they pay 1 mil to us, we pay that to them. To fund the department. In return, we have a contract for them to cover the Broomfield Township side of the village. If we didn't do that, fire coverage would be coming from Remus for that side of the village. And the legitimate number here is when you're dealing with departments, your insurance company looks at the ISO rating, so the combination of equipment and training, that kind of stuff. Sherman's is so much better than Wheatland's that it is a cost savings for almost everybody that has a home, because your homeowner's insurance goes down more than that 1 millage costs you.
That's not where I was
Oh.
headed with that. It was, well, can they come back at you and say, well, because you're left the townships, now we're gonna charge you 2 or 3 mills?
They haven't, I mean,
Then I guess we get our.
Yeah.
$1 million from them.
Say that again.
I guess then we'll get the money that we paid since 1998, which we can go after. Legally, I know. You know,
yeah, so one of the reasons why we've talked extensively at this board about the division of assets part of the deal is for that reason alone, like where are you at here, division of assets? So 22, Sherman's audited position was 1.3 million. If the village were to force a division of assets, 47% of that would be our legal case to make. So not doing that is our way of saying, you know, we do wanna maintain good relationships, we do wanna continue to stay with the fire department. Certainly do wanna have conversations with the library.
So if you don't go after that 47% now. And 5 years from now, they decide to up your bill to 3 mills instead of 1. And you then go back after that at a later date, or is that do it now or?
Do it now. Do it now.
if you don't mind, I served on the Nottawa Sherman Township Board for 4 years, because I was the Sherman Township elected, so I'm one of those two. The money they collect, the largest person or largest area that donates to them, that gives them their taxes, is Sherman and Broomfield Township. They also get it from Nottawa Township, they get it partly from Gilmore Township and Round. So they would be shooting themselves in the foot to go after their biggest payers of money into them, which would be us. So not to say that they couldn't do it, they could do it, but you know, the council could also say, nope, sorry, we're not gonna do that, and then we would have to come up with our own fire and medical protection, so it's both, it's not just fire, we also get all the ambulance medical services too. To that same contract, that we do all that stuff, so. Could they do it? Yeah, will they do it? Highly doubt it, so. Like I said, I think they shoot themselves in the foot to do that.
Anything else? Okay, we have no public hearings. Existing business, agenda item 8, city corporation. Mr. Wolf.
Yeah, so when the council set forth on this, back in probably June, I think is when you guys set this up. You were gonna revisit the discussion after we had several community meetings, had some more information out there for the community. And then decide whether or not to look at going forward in that next step of the process to begin the petition gathering process. In your package, you have a rough timeline of what that process looks like in terms of, you know, potentially doing that sometime this fall, getting it into the State Boundary Commission, going through all that bureaucratic stuff. The first half of 26. Charter Commission election, August or November, et cetera, et cetera. I will say that there wouldn't be anything that would preclude you if you wanted to move forward from also offering additional meetings in September. If there's a need for that. We'll wait till after a few more meetings, so, you know, now that the kids are back in school, it does get a little bit more time crunch on people, I think.
I'm looking out there and I see a bunch of faces that haven't been here before. So the last two times we had people that hadn't been here before too.
True.
So maybe we do want to have another one before, just putting it up for debate. We might want to have another one of these so that people can come again and then make a decision. Because I don't see the same 2 or 3 people here all the time. I see a bunch of different faces.
Oh, Jeff.
2 or 3, I said. I know.
Yeah.
3.
Yeah, see.
That's
thank
3.
you.
Put it on video and put it out there.
It's out there.
It's out there.
Yeah, I saw the written part, I did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
it's
it's been-
nice to see written like that too, and hear it. It's nice to hear it.
I would think that'd be a good thing. Most objections that I've heard have been misinformation and just actually knowing some facts, I think helps a lot of people out.
So let's set up another, and then we'll decide in September meeting. Okay?
Are we only doing the Q and A during our meeting or are we gonna?
Oh, let's do, well, I suppose.
No, I think we're gonna have enough regular items of business that.
Yeah, we don't want to usually do what we're doing tonight. Tonight was unusual because we had nothing else except this.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of items in business, so let's do it a different time before
Yeah.
the meeting, and then we can act on it on at the meeting. That sound good? Okay. So we'll have to make a time, Tim, you can do that, right?
Yeah, I'll start looking at the schedule.
Start looking at the schedule.
For that kind of stuff, yeah.
Okay? This is another portion for public comment. Name and address for the record. Any other public comment?
Can I invite you to the library? Come and visit. Please do. Carol Merwin, I'm Granada. And I'm the board of the library. We've had children's programs, we have book club, we have a brand new addition going in. You have to come and see it. That was an ARPA grant.
Have they been ordering new books? Because when I.
Some,
what I was
because we're in the movie that we've removed, so please be patient with
That's
us.
why I haven't been back. in-
Right. Well, you can always get them to Melcat and Libby,
Libby, I use.
love the-
right,
Yes.
right,
Yeah.
so, yeah,
Well,
so
thank you.
please come.
Anyone else?
Dave Schleich, 1060 Clubhouse Drive, just a recommendation. You guys did a wonderful job, so awful lot of work. I've sat on more boards than you can ever imagine. What I'm saying is that, what if you started with the pros and cons first, and then got into the more financial? Half that stuff I couldn't read, maybe I'm blind as a bat sitting here, I don't know. But if you give them, say, hey, this is the best part, this is the worst part. Well, then toss it around with that. Well, they're set here, and then you get into, this is how we're going to achieve it financially. I mean, that's just,
Thank you.
well, simple, it would be simple to me, but I'm a simple guy. So.
We're all talking about that, right?
Yeah.
Then it's just a matter of keeping up with knowledge and
Isn't that
looking
true?
stuff up on the website, talking to your neighbors and friends, you know.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, council comments, anything?
I'd like to just thank everybody for actually coming and finding out what the facts are and knowing and asking questions yourself. I think that's a big step rather than, oh, I saw this on Facebook or next door, like you guys are here and you know the truth. You can have your opinion one way or the other now, but the facts are the facts and I appreciate that.
And tell anybody that you see that it's online. They go to the village website, they can really peruse it. Okay, anybody else? Okay, next planning commission meeting is 7 p.m. Tuesday, September 9th. And the next council meeting is Tuesday, September 23rd. With that, we are adjourned.